This episode is brought to you by Portland Distro. If you like underground music, movies, and more, go to portlanddistro.com for licensed merch, vinyl, CDs, and more. Plug in the discount code 10OFF, TENOFF, for a 10% discount at portlanddistro.com. Hey guys, Mike Hill here. Probably about time to do another one of these solo episodes to bring everybody up to speed. I just got back from our first run of dates in close to 3 years. True, we played one show last year in 2021 with Nuclear Assault, Sub-Zero, Sworn Enemy, and a bunch of other great bands. And I was literally just recovered from COVID, so it was kind of hard to enjoy myself that night. The whole thing was very taxing physically for me, but I still was able to pull it off. So, yeah, these last few dates we did were great, and I'll get into some detail about that. But before we get going, I just want to shout out to the community, man. We got a good little thing going on with my brothers Jackie Smith Into the Necrosphere podcast and Brandon Legion's Horror Wolf 666 podcasts. And yeah, there's a vibe, man. It's cool. It's like we're supporting each other. We listen to each other's shows. I feel like there's like a pretty decent amount of crossover between our fan base and our listenership. And both of those guys are just fucking awesome dudes. And I actually hung out with Brandon on this last run of dates down in South Carolina. And it was great to meet him in person finally. I mean, we've been, pretty close contact, on a weekly basis via social media. We message each other. We've been guests on each other's shows. And just to put a name to that face, and I met his lovely wife, Cindy, and it was just a great time, man. I had so much fun hanging out with those guys, and it just makes things that more cooler, that more real in this world that we've all been living in of virtual connections, MS Teams meetings, Zoom calls, and all that kind of stuff. And it felt like a triumph to finally meet in person and hang out, and just unwind and chill and enjoy music. And it was just a really good time, man. And I hope someday to meet Jackie, man. That would be great. Jackie and Cheyenne. And be sure to check out Cheyenne's new podcast. He's entered the podcasting arena with Iblis Manifestations. And if you're into the occult, spirituality, and all that sort of stuff, definitely check his show out too. And like I said, man, we got a thing going here. It's really cool. It's sprung up organically. And just through mutual respect and hard work. We've kind of put together this little legion, this alliance, this unholy alliance. So, yeah, it's been a lot of fun, just interacting with everybody. But before we get into that, I just want to tell sort of a funny story. It's my buddy Mike G, who plays in Replicant and Windfarer, and also is the bass player in Scorpion Throne. And there's some news about that, too, coming up. So one night, about a week ago, Mike sends me a link to a bunch of these videos. This kind of like, minimalist, industrial, goth kind of stuff. And one of them was a band called Lebanon Hanover. And that one really sunk its hooks into me. And I was like, man, this is cool. It's like, it's a duo. It's, this German lady, Larissa Iceglass, which is one of the sickest names that I can imagine. And this British dude, William Maybelline. And it's just that stripped down, old school, dark wave, drum machines, bass lines. I can see the heavy Joy Division, New Order influence on it. Super dark lyrics, very, very cool. So I got really obsessed with it over this past week. Just got into their entire catalog and just was listening to it on a daily basis. They got some great videos, and I'm just all in. So I'm like, oh, great. There's this brand new band that no one knows about. So, I have a short list of people that enjoy this sort of stuff. So I started contacting them, and the first person I contacted was Retta, my good friend Retta, and I was like, "Hey, have you heard this band?" And she's like, "Yeah, 2 years ago I made a playlist with some of their material on there." And I'm like, "Oh, oops, my bad." So, okay, so she's known about this. Like, I don't know, this band is like well within her wheelhouse. So I hit up my bandmate in True Emerald, Sarah Timms, who also enjoys this kind of stuff. And I'm like, "Hey, Sarah, have you heard of these guys?" And she's like, "Yeah, I've been a fan of them for 10 years. And, I went to try to go see them, but there's a problem with their visas and they weren't able to come to the show and all this other stuff." So I'm like, "Oh, man, I'm not as cool as I thought I was." So finally, Ralph, who's been on tour as well, I didn't want to bother him. You know what I mean? He's out there doing his thing. I kind of minimized our contact, traveling, driving across, different cities. And I get it. You don't always have time to respond to people. So, "Ralph, have you heard, Lebanon, Hanover?" And he's like, "Yeah, I've seen him about 8 or 9 times already." So I'm like, well, at the end of the day, the bottom line is I'm not that much on the cutting edge as I thought I was. But nonetheless, I have a new band that I like and I love, and I can't stop listening to them. And, part of this show, I think, anyone who's been listening to this thing, we like to put together these playlists. So I'm going to put a playlist together for you all, and it's going to include some of that stuff as well as just some of the other tracks that I've been obsessed with from the tour and up until now, like the week or so that I've been home. So yeah, it's I always love doing these things. It reminds me back in the day when you would make a cassette mixtape for somebody and you'd exchange these things and you turn them on to all this cool stuff. And hopefully some of you guys remember cassette tapes. I mean, I know cassettes are actually on the upswing again, but back in the old days, you were able to record. You could buy like a sleeve of these Memorex tapes and, hit play and record. You record something from your record player or CD player and you'd make a song and put it in there and you hit pause and you put another one in there and you give it to your friend. And this is actually quite popular when young people would be courting each other. Oftentimes, you would make a mixtape for your potential paramour and, to demonstrate to them like how cool you are and like, "Oh, I know of all these bands. I know bands that you like. And maybe there's something on there that you don't know about that you like. And now suddenly I'm the one who's sharing something with you and bringing you up to speed." So that's some of the stuff I used to love to do back when I was a young man and, had more life in me than I do these days. So, anyway, that's what these playlists are all about. We pretty much do them for most of the episodes. Not all of them, but most of them. So I'm going to put one together for this episode, and hopefully you guys dig it. So, yeah, that was kind of cool. I always crack myself up when I do these things. When I think I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I must share this with people," yet I'm the one who's late to the party with the information, So the tour was cool, man. It was booked during the height of the Omicron wave. So, the shows were in cities that were like not necessarily places we normally play. And there was some difficulties putting the shows together because still people were reluctant to book, more smaller, shows. Even big shows are having a hard time being booked. So, it was a challenge to get everything together, yet, thanks to our booking agent, everything was put together really professionally and everything worked out for the best. And we went out on the road with Cloak from Atlanta and Restless Spirit from Long Island. And all the dates were with us and it was just, great, cool package. Cloak is label mates of ours and they're a fine band. I've actually been a fan of theirs for several years. I don't know, maybe 3 years ago. They were on tour with 1349, who were friends of ours. And when I was still living in Brooklyn at the time, so when they played at St. Vitus, I went to the show and I saw Cloak and they were great. and I was introduced to Billy, the bass player, and really nice guy. And we hung out, we talked, and I was like, "That's a cool guy. That's a really cool band. I hope our paths cross in the future." And sure enough, we did. We ended up doing the short tour together. I wish it was longer, but we're just getting into this thing, man. We're just getting back on our feet, sharpening the blade, knocking the rust off, and it was a really, really great way to return to the road. Now, Restless Spirit was another band that I was only familiar with because we have the same management, and I was given some of their material to listen to prior to the tour, and I was like, wow, this is really cool. It's different. It's like, it makes the whole package very different, yet there's a thread that connects all the bands. I assume if you're listening to this, you know what Tombs sounds like. So there's us, there was Cloak, who was this, I would say, more of like in a rock, blackened rock music, sort of vibe. They have a black metal vibe, black metal band, definitely. But they're definitely connecting with the hard rock version of black metal. And great songwriting, really cool, great playing, awesome players. Cool vibe on stage. Very, very well, very professional, trip going on with those guys. And it was really cool to do these dates together. Restless Spirit were a bit younger guys. And once again, dark. To me, there was almost like a Danzig kind of thing, like a blues, like a dark blues thing going on. And Paul, the singer's got an incredible voice, and by far Paul was the best vocalist on this entire tour. Like he sang great every night. He also played lead guitar. Restless Spirit is a 3-piece, and he was shredding, and holding it down, singing his ass off, and it was great. And I'm actually going to have him as a guest on the show in a few episodes. We got it scheduled for later this week, so you guys will get a chance to get to know him and find out more about the band. And I also discovered Paul is a horror writer. He writes as a horror journalist, and he probably has a bunch of different cool things to share with us regarding that. And I'm sure we're gonna, in addition to hard rock and heavy metal and darkness, we're probably gonna talk about horror movies. So that's keep your eyes and ears open for that episode. That'll be coming out soon. And we all hit it off, man. And I gotta say, man, it's funny. Like, there's a certain vibe that happens here in the Northeast, in especially the New York, New Jersey area. There's like, I guess I was never really aware of it when I was growing up because, I grew up in that environment, but when you start venturing out into the world, it's like you can almost pick out New Yorkers, like when you come around them, New York, New Jersey people, and there's like a certain thing, and you just sort of gravitate towards each other. And I guess that's how it was with Restless Spirit. There's like a certain, sense of humor, certain callousness, a certain, inappropriate humor that associates people from this part of the country. And I really connected with those guys, and they were just really cool dudes. And I want to help them as any possible way that I can, in any meager way that I can help these guys move forward. I would really, really like to do that. And first and foremost, they're a great band, and they're just really cool guys and hardworking dudes. So just do me a favor and check them out. I mean, check them out on Spotify or whatever streaming platform. Go on YouTube and look them up. Restless Spirit. So one of the primary things that was good about the tour was, and I'm sure all of you are experiencing this over the last couple of years, where, everyone's got stories of hardships during the pandemic. And, I acknowledge that we're not out of the woods yet, but I also feel as if we're in the tail end of this thing. And I mean, my dad just recovered from COVID. My dad's 83 years old, okay? You know, not in the best health. He had a stroke several years ago. 83, tested positive. He's been vaccinated and boosted, you know, all that stuff. All that stuff, despite being a Donald Trump supporter, he actually went ahead and did all this stuff, which I'm really happy for, you know. And I guess the fact that my dad is a right-wing guy and that I love him still, you know, and he's my father and his family should be maybe a little bit of a testament to how we need to be more united as a country, you know, and you can't let ideologies break up families. It was tough, I have to admit, but we overcame that, you know. Anyway, my dad recovered. He tested positive. I had just gotten back from these dates, and I was trying to get my feet under me to go back to work. And my mom called me up, crying, hysterical. You know, your dad has COVID, right? And I was like, okay. Explain what happened. So we tested positive. He went to the doctor. He had a cold. The doctor was like, let's give you a test. So they gave him the PCR test, and sure enough, he came back positive. So my mom quarantined him in the basement for, I know the minimum is 5 days, but she kept him down there for an entire week. So she wasn't taking any chances with the old guy. So he's down there by himself. I actually stopped in, you know, I wanted to, just kind of like survey the situation, make sure everything was cool, you know. I checked out my dad and he was completely fine. Like I asked him how he was feeling and he's like, just a little tired. And then sure enough, he recovered fully. And not only did he recover fully, but he also tested negative after 8 days of being testing positive. My mom's still negative. She did not, you know, get COVID or anything like that. So she's totally fine. And everyone I know, Jacob from All Hell, like he was potentially going to go to one of these shows, and he hit me up. And he's like, my girlfriend, my lady, tested positive, no symptoms, but we're going to play it safe and be responsible and stay home. So I'll catch you next time. So I'm like, all right, great, no problem, dude. And that's what I'm saying. I mean, I realize this is like, you know, serious matter, you know, public health scenario. People should still be responsible, but I have to be optimistic about the coming months, that things are going to be okay. And I know that there were periods of time where it didn't seem that way. But during the last 2 years, you know, if you've been listening to this show, you know that I've been pretty much alone, living by myself here, me and my cat, and just dealing with it. Not only dealing with the pandemic and all of its anxieties and, you know, downsides to that, but there's also been quite a bit of loss in my life too. One very devastating loss, which came in October of 2021, that sent me into the bleakest void imaginable. And, you know, all of that really hard times manifested themselves and just like feeling like, not just on a spiritual level, like I thought like maybe I died and this is what purgatory is like, being completely alone and cut off and not being able to do any of the things that you want to do or see any of the people that you want to be with, you know. And I mean, I documented that whole experience, you know, of grief, and I'm still grieving and it's still very hard. It's not something that you ever really get over, I think. You know, I mean, it's only been about 6 months or so, but you know, that loss is something that's always going to be with me. But oddly enough, another digression, just trying to make sense of these things when you lose someone prematurely. Like, you know, for example, I've lost family members that were older. They were old. They were, you know, elderly, and it almost, I hesitate to say that it makes sense, but it follows the natural trajectory of life when someone who is old and isn't well passes. You know, that's like a a normal cycle of life kind of scenario. But when someone is just far too young and is taken from you prematurely and unexpectedly, it's like that blow is heavier in a lot of ways, you know. And this person wasn't like an elder family member; they were like a peer of mine. And certainly, I've lost people over the years, and that's also hard. And I was close to them too. You know, people that were about my age that died. You know, I don't have to get into all the ways they died, but just those were also devastating. But this person was like my go-to person, like the number one in my life. And the closest I've ever been to anybody was this person, and they're gone. So in the midst of all this, going into 2022, my New Year's resolution was to stay alive to see 2023. You know, that's not to say that I was planning on like killing myself or anything like that, but you know, it's like, yeah, those thoughts cross your mind, you know, of suicide and like, you know, just like, you know, maybe being a little too reckless when you're doing something and, you know, passing on into the next sphere because you just feel like there's nothing worth living for anymore. You know, and it was a combination of all that stuff. Now, it's funny the places where inspiration comes from. I was listening to the King Cast, which is a Stephen King dedicated podcast, and they were talking about Pet Sematary, which is one of my favorite Stephen King novels. You know, I would have to say Pet Sematary, The Shining, and Salem's Lot are probably my favorite Stephen King stories, as well as Revival. I cannot forget Revival, which is like his most, you know, cosmic horror, Lovecraftian tale that he's ever written. The way they were talking about Pet Sematary, they broke it down in such a manner that it really resonated with me. Because I mean, if you think about the storyline, you have like a family, and what is the worst possible thing that can happen to a family? The answer is to have one of the children die. That is the worst possible thing that can happen to a parent. So Stephen King wrote a story about the worst possible thing happening and the family going to unusual lengths to bring that person back. Okay. Now, this is not a new story. This is like the monkey's paw. Like, you know, this has been visited by a lot of different, a lot of different horror movies and short stories and everything. And, you know, one of the other great, explorations of this theme is a film called Death Dream, which is a monkey's paw story, but also kind of like this anti-war film as well. And it's like, I keep urging Mike and Jeff to talk about this on Necromaniacs. And I don't know, they just seem like sort of reluctant. So maybe I'll do a special episode on this about the monkey's paw and how it relates to Death Dream. But it's a great film, man. It came out, you know, and it's from that halcyon era of horror films. So one of the things that they talk about in Pet Sematary is dealing with grief. And you can allow the grief to drag you into the grave like the family did in Pet Sematary, you know, where they could not let go of their son's passing, Gage. They couldn't just acknowledge it. They couldn't deal with it. They couldn't get past the fact that he was gone. So they chose to go the route of black magic, and then it just led to ruin and the desecration of their son's spirit and body and everything, and the ruin of their family, and drag them into the pit, basically. You know, and the same thing, it's pretty much the same story in Death Dream, too. So that resonated with me when I heard that. And I took that to heart, and I thought about my situation and how this was like the worst thing I've ever dealt with in my life. And I could either choose to let it drag me into the grave and ruin my life, which is, it felt like it was the beginnings of that were happening. to me at the end of 2021, or I can get over it. I can overcome all this stuff and let go of some of these feelings I have, and move past it, and then hopefully move into a better life. And that's kind of what I was playing. I was working with that concept, and then going out on the road really galvanized me because, like I said, the tour was what it was, man. It was a few, just a long weekend, basically, a couple of dates. We went out there, played some small shows, and, connected with people. And it just felt so good to be on stage again. And not only just the act of performing the songs, but taking on the person that I thought I had lost over the last couple of years. Like when you define yourself by certain things, like for me, I define myself by being not only a creative person, but someone who, somewhat of an adventurer, a traveler, this like swashbuckler who travels across the country, goes, does all this stuff, like on the road, experiencing life that way, seeing different people, seeing different places, and that was what I've defined myself by. And then when your world gets incredibly small and you're stuck just within the four walls of your dwelling, you just feel like part of you died and you become this other person. So, it's almost like one of those stories where you'll have like, it's like a comic book story where there's like a hero who forgot that he was this other guy, or there's a spell cast on him where he doesn't think he's living another life. And then this outside force comes and he realizes that he actually is this other person. And then, he's back in action. I know that sounds like super melodramatic, and, but that's me. I love comics. I like weird fiction. I love all this dorky stuff. And sometimes I look at my life the same way. So, yeah, so it was really good to be out there, man. I got to say. And, furthermore, I think this has all been announced at this point, and we're going to be heading out shortly in less than a month. We embark on another tour with Origin and Abysmal Dawn, and it starts in Albuquerque, New Mexico, which is kind of that's a bit of a haul for us to get out there and start this, and it ends in Lincoln, Nebraska. There's no East Coast dates on this tour. We're not on the East Coast leg of this tour, so it's all out there in the western part of the country and parts of Canada and parts of the Midwest, and I'm excited beyond belief to be out there embarking on that. And everyone I'm involved in the tour is really cool. Some of these guys I go back with a little ways, and it's just going to be fun. And once again, it's like, an opportunity to play to a bunch of kids who probably hadn't seen us before. Because I imagine like your typical Origin fan might not have seen Tombs play at some point, So I'm excited to branch out, you know what I mean, and connect with new fans of extreme music that we might not have been able to interact with. There's another huge news item for later in the year regarding Tombs that I cannot share with you just yet, but we got that offer while we were gone on this past run of dates, and I was floored by how awesome it was. So that will be unveiled over some coming months, I can't say anything about it, but it's like, it makes complete sense, and it's just fucking cool, and I'm excited, and it's like it's another reason to keep going on, to keep living, to keep moving forward, and like, once again, like I said, I got in 2021, I woke up January 1st, depressed, sad, wishing I could just sleep for the rest of my life and like just disappear into like some ex-oblivion that Lovecraft wrote about or something, and I made a promise to myself that I would live to the end of 2023. I was going to not die. I was going to live. I was going to continue living. And all this stuff really has given me inspiration to keep moving forward, keep living. And I feel like unless we blow ourselves up in a nuclear war, which is also on the table too at this point, if that doesn't happen, I just feel like things are turning a corner, and I'm positive, and working on new music. I'm not sure what recording plans there are, but for over the summer we're going to be demoing new material, which will end up on our new record, which will hopefully come out soon. This is all like planning right now, but you guys know me. There's always going to be some new thing that's going to be on the horizon. So there's always something to work for. So tons of new material ideas, tons of scraps and songs and this and that, and there's always stuff. Hell, we have like 2 new songs that we play in the set right now. So maybe that'll be on the album, or maybe it'll be on like some EP or something that comes out. Like I love EPs, man. I love singles and EPs. It's just, I don't know. There's something special about just getting 4 songs, I think. And yeah, I don't know. Maybe we'll do something like that, and it can be put out before this tour in November. And what I think is kind of cool about the tour in November is that it starts on November 1st. So we get a chance to, have Halloween and stuff like that before we go out on this thing. And I'll celebrate Halloween this year. Last year I didn't, because I couldn't find any meaning in anything last year at that time. And the year before, I was studying for the PE exam, so I didn't have time to really, do my 30 days of Halloween, thing where I watch movies every night. But this year, I'm hoping that we can do something cool. Maybe there'll be a show or something like that we play. I know we've been talking about, Jackie and I have been talking about something. Jackie from Into the Necrosphere. They've been talking about something involving him traveling over here from England, and us doing some Sam Haines stuff and a live performance somewhere either in New York or New Jersey, and just it being around Halloween and being a ton of fun. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if that can happen. Now with Scorpion Throne, I shared with you guys the rough mixes. Changed a couple things around. They're being worked on this week, and probably over the next few days, I will have final mixes. Justin Spaeth, my drummer, is mixing it, and he's mixed a bunch of stuff. Like he actually mixed 2 of the tracks that are on this thing that Season of Mist is slowly releasing. These series of singles that they're putting out. Ex Oblivion's out by now. You guys have probably heard it. There's a Gigi Allen cover. There's a Motorhead cover. And there's like some other remixes and ambient tracks and things. And Justin actually mixed the Motorhead cover and the Gigi cover. So that you'll get, he's like great at that kind of stuff. So I trust him fully with Scorpion Throne. I play around with half-assed audio engineering, but I got to be honest, I don't think I ever want to listen to these 4 songs again. I certainly would not want to spend more time with the material as far as mixing goes. Those songs encapsulated a very, very dark period of my life, and the lyrics and all that sort of stuff. It was very personal and very, very, I just want to move past all that. I've documented it. It's going to exist. There might be something someone can take away from it that might help them. But for me, the catharsis of creating that is over with. It's done. And now it's part of the past. And I'm moving on. And I don't want to ever hear those songs again. I don't want to think about them anymore. I don't want to read the lyrics. I don't want to sing them anymore. And I don't want to play those riffs associated with those songs. And it's time, just like I said, to turn the corner and open the door and step into a new world. But with that said, that the first Scorpion Throne 1 is like so important to me because it is so personal, and I'm really proud of the work we did, and I'm really happy that Andrew Hernandez was able to perform drums on that, play drums, and did such a great job, and overcome some obstacles on recording that stuff. Some technical issues we had, and Andrew's hung in there like I knew he would, because I have ultimate confidence in Andrew, and I know that when he sets his mind to doing something, he will achieve that. And also props to Mike G, man, like a good friend, total pro, incredible musician, and he was a big part of this as well. And he's putting the artwork together too. That's a creation that came from him, and the logo and artwork stuff looks great. And I'll be unveiling all that stuff over the next few weeks, and the stuff will be up on Bandcamp and on the Everything Went Black Bandcamp, which exists. There's a couple things up there if you guys want to check it out. Yeah, and like there's new stuff even in that realm, new ideas. Mike and I are probably going to get together over the summer and try to write another EP, another 4 or 5 songs, and see what comes of that. And Scorpion Throne is never going to be a live band. It's not going to be something that's going to perform anywhere or like go on tour or any of these things. It's just going to be a project that 3 friends do, and it's out there for you guys to check out. If you like it, great. If you don't like it, that's also cool. It's definitely different, than the stuff I've been doing in Tombs, the stuff that Andrew's been doing, the stuff that Mike's been doing. It's like a very different kind of feel. And like I said earlier, the cathartic nature of the music, and how in a lot of ways it was a therapeutic thing for me to put energy into something to fill those blank moments of despair that I had during the latter part of 2021. When you're done with everything and you're just sitting here alone and working with very, very difficult emotions and feelings of loss and like wondering whether or not life's even worth living anymore. I was able to work on the Scorpion Throne stuff. And, it's so meaningful to me that Mike and Andrew were part of that. And, I just want to end on a positive note. I'm looking forward to getting that out there. I'm looking forward to going on the road again. We got a full year of stuff coming up, which is really cool. And, you guys are been great. Appreciate all the support, especially with the Patreon. You guys have been really cool, and I'm overjoyed by like how positive everything's been and how successful everything's been, and how we, once again, we got, even within the microcosm of Everything Went Black, I feel like there's like a vibe going on with everyone, and it's a really positive vibe. So, with all that said, I hope you guys are doing good. Stay strong, and I'll talk to you guys next week. Take care.
above me, be assured. Did we connect enough? I'm collapsing just now. Falling without the sun. An orange sunbeam on the rock. The last thing I see in my life. And no one's even bothered whether I even worked. I felt something like happiness as I lose out on this heart attack. And all metaphysical unmasks itself now. We had each other enough. Did we connect